Force is stronger, my friend.
Force is with you, young Skywalker.
Your father has it.
But you are not a Jedi yet.
I have it.
I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Welcome
to Nerdville.
You will never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy. Just be cautious.
Hello there, Star Wars fans. I'm Turtles.
And I'm Fanfi. Finally, a decent Star Wars live action that's not the OG trilogy. Today we will do a full review of the Ahsoka TV show, the big things to take away, what we enjoyed and hated, as well as our predictions for the continuation of this story. We will be discussing the style, the performance of the actors, the characters, the world building, and our final thoughts on the series.
This series decided to use a samurai/western style of filming, which is not surprising, since Star Wars was heavily based on Akira Kurosawa's movie. While the western/samurai style does fit Star Wars very well, there's something to be said about overusing it.
A few moments later. 2,000 years later.
In a way that makes it seem like it's retconning certain things about Star Wars, such as the lightsaber fights, that seem so much slower than we're used to be for a purely stylistic purpose. While there are clear similarities between Jedi and Samurai, the fighting style that George Lucas created from episode 5 to 3 was a much more fast-paced exchange of blows than what we would typically see in a movie done by Kurosawa. Doing it once or twice, like when Ahsoka defeats Marok on SWTOR, looks really good, but it felt like it hurt the first fight between Ahsoka and Baylan more than giving it personality. It had a similar effect when Ahsoka was fighting Anakin in her mind. It was too slow, though it felt more staged. Later on in the series, it becomes less and less of an issue, notably when Ahsoka has a rematch with Baylan Skoll and Morgan Elsbeth respectively. While Ahsoka definitely has a more modern filmmaking process, like with The Mandalorian, they managed to capture very well the aesthetics that George Lucas showed us in the original trilogy.
As we have said in our intro, for the first time we are seeing a Star Wars live action with decent to great acting.
Woo! Yeah, baby!
The Star Wars movies and TV shows, when it comes to live action, is riddled with terrible and cringe acting, unfortunately, that makes some scenes really hard to watch.
Dated a jowl for a while. They're quite furry. Very furry.
It's a power that Jedi have that lets them control people and make things float.
Sorry, milady.
That was weird.
For some reason, ever since the original trilogy, good performances are clearly not the focus of Star Wars.
I can't breathe.
This cannot be said for the animation series of Star Wars, where the voice actors do an incredible job. This is probably one of the main reasons the performances were on point in this series, since it was not only Ahsoka Season 1, but also Rebels Season 5. So the live action actors had to make us believe that they were these characters that we have been following for 4 seasons. And I have to say, I'm shocked that they actually delivered. Let's talk about Rosario Dawson, who we had already seen in Mandalorian Season 2 and Boba Fett. Already in those shows, for the character of Ahsoka in particular, we saw that Dave Filoni had put in extra care in making sure that all of her mannerisms and expressions were on point. From her reactions when talking with her master, being called Snips,
Hey, Snips.
to how she portrays Ahsoka as a master is spot on to what we have seen in Clone Wars and in Rebels so far, with less cringe.
I won't leave you. Not this time.
You'd think we'd talk about Sabine next, since she is such an important part of the show and a returning character from Rebels. But we are going to discuss Ray Stevenson, who plays Baylan Skoll. Whether he's playing Titus Pulo, a member of Julius Caesar's 13th Legion in Rome, or Isak Serko, a vengeful Ukrainian mobster in Dexter, his performances are always top-notch. This was not his first role in Star Wars, by the way, since he voiced the Imperial Mandalorian Gar Saxon in Star Wars Rebels. Even though he was amazing in all of these roles, it feels like Ray Stevenson was not only born to play Baylan Skoll, but born to play a Force-sensitive warrior in Star Wars. I've never seen a performance this good for this type of character, since Alec Guinness as Ben Kenobi or Liam Neeson as Qui-Gon Jinn, which is strange to say for a character who is an antagonist. This was an incredible performance by Ray Stevenson. May he rest in peace. There is not much to say about the returning cast from Rebels, such as Clancy Brown as Governor Azadi or Lars Mikkelsen as Grand Admiral Mithra Nyorodo, since they are portraying the same characters, but they do a very good job. We were worried a bit about Thrawn in live action at first, but when he uttered his first line, it gave us chills.
What was first just a dream has become a frightening reality.
And now, let's talk about Sabine Wren. Comparing her to the other crew members in Rebels, she feels less captivating. While her character is very interesting, her performance felt quite weak in Rebels. We discovered while watching this series that we like Sabine a lot, thanks to Natasha Liu's performance in the series. Ezra is just so perfect. Ezra by no means is our favorite character in Rebels, but he was cool and a funny character though. Even after his dark arc in Rebels Season 3 and 4, they brought us back to how he was in Season 1. Much like Rosario Dawson in Ahsoka, Eman Esfandi does a really good job at portraying Ezra's mannerism and his general positive aura. We're happy they decided not to change his character because of the isolation he has gone through. He's still a happy-go-lucky troublemaker that we all love.
Dispatch to your position.
757 here. Copy.
This is Trooper LS-123, reporting intruders in the upper hangar. Sir, I believe the lower hangar is a diversion.
His chemistry with Sabine was also very palpable on screen. It felt like we were seeing the characters we love from the animation show, which was very heartwarming.
If you made it this far into the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell.
Do it.
When we originally watched Star Wars Rebels during the Mandalorian arc in Season 3, it seemed very clear during Sabine's training with Kanan that she had some level of force sensitivity.
4, 5, 6.
The blade feels lighter.
You're connecting with it. It's becoming a part of you.
This was further reinforced when Ezra gave his lightsaber to Sabine during the finale of Star Wars Rebels. In this series, it is confirmed that she is force sensitive, but her aptitude with the force, as Yang points out, is severely limited. As we know, a force sensitive aptitude with the force can vary from person to person, but strong emotions and attachments can cloud someone to the force.
Be mindful of your feelings.
Search your feelings.
I don't feel it.
It seems pretty clear that losing Ezra, as well as her people and family to the Mandalorian Purge, severely limited her access to the Force, because she tries to repress her emotions. This made her believe that she was unable to stay a Jedi Padawan. This changes after she sees Ezra, since she is not burying her emotions anymore, as she embraces who she really is and what she has been through. Ahsoka goes through something similar, as Hu Yang and Hera point out during the show. She needs Sabine as much as Sabine needs her. Much like Sabine was not ready to be a Padawan, Ahsoka was not ready to be a master, since she left the Order before Anakin could finish training her. Thus the whole reason for Ahsoka needing to confront Anakin's Force Ghost. Because she was only taught to be a warrior by her master, she believes that if she trained someone like Anakin trained her, it would only lead to the dark side, death and destruction, as she thought with Grogu. But Anakin taught her to understand that the Force isn't so simple, and not as black and white as she was led to believe. The fact that he became Darth Vader does not negate the things he taught her as a hero in the Clone Wars. She believes that the way of the warrior she was taught was only meant to sharpen her as a weapon, fulfill that path of death and destruction that Baylan taunts her with in their fight.
Your legacy, like your master's, is one of death and destruction.
Fear of her turning her Padawans to the dark side has been holding her back. We saw in the first episode of Tales of the Jedi that Ahsoka's people are an incredibly peaceful one, who are very close to nature. We see in the episode that her mother explains to her the importance of life and respecting it. In that same episode, she is taken by a saber-tooth type creature, but Ahsoka, even at that age, did not fear it, and the animal, through Ahsoka's connection to the Force, understood that. It is this sense of peace and acceptance that Anakin wants Ahsoka to accept is still possible, despite all the death and loss she experienced in the Clone Wars, and despite being taught by someone who caused even more pain. This leads perfectly to the scene with her communicating to the Purgles, as it parallels the peace of mind she had as a baby, confronting that saber-tooth. Even in Rosario Dawson's performance, we can clearly see that she has found her purpose.
Ahsoka is a good example of a grey Jedi, but we've never seen this type of character on the side of the Sith, a grey Sith. Baylan Skoll is a great example of this. His composure, and especially patience, are not typical Sith traits. A lot of his mannerisms infer on how he feels about the Jedi, where he seems almost nostalgic about the Order. We can see this in his conversation with Shin.
When I was a bit older than you are now, I watched everything I knew burn.
The Jedi Temple?
A Sith would not react this way when he became dark. They become
someone else. I must become something else.
Baylan Skoll is like Qui-Gon Jinn turned to the dark side. In a strange way, he represents what true balance should be, following the will of the living Force. He is not disturbed by greed or ambition, only the Force guides him. He also treats people with respect and honor. The way he handled Sabine is a good example of this, where he clearly uses her emotions against her, but made a deal which he then honors. Similarly, with his apprentice, he does not try to control her, but to teach her, emphasizing that she should become her own person. The most anticipated moment of the show was Thrawn's return. He's exactly like we left him in Star Wars Rebels. Extremely intelligent, always 5 steps ahead of his enemies, and objective-driven. Now that he has allies that are Force wielders such as the Night Sisters, he's even more dangerous since he was a big threat without any Force users on his side, and now he does. The return of Thrawn is nothing to be ignored. Giving the element of surprise to a super genius tactician like Thrawn is very foolish. Hera was such a pivotal character in Star Wars Rebels. She was instrumental in every conflict that transpired in the series. Unfortunately, in this show, it feels like her character is a means to mend the relationship between Sabine and Ahsoka. Once they leave, her purpose really is to show the incompetence of the New Republic, as well as giving us the opportunity to have Jason join the plot and show us his Force sensibility.
Listen to the waves.
The waves crashing?
The lightsabers.
Hera was known for her piloting skills, but even in this show we don't get a real focus on it. On Corellia, Chopper was the focus of the space battle sequence. On SWTOR, the moment Hera arrives with her squadron, they all get annihilated before we get to see their skills. Hopefully in her next appearance, we will see her piloting skills that we saw in Rebels.
We talked about the lightsaber duels earlier, but despite the different stylistic approach to the duels, it was very clear in the way they fought and switched stances which lightsaber form they were using. Sabine has very basic lightsaber training, as she left her training with Ahsoka early. Therefore, she uses Form 1, the most basic form, where she focuses on broad sweeping strikes and trying to disarm her opponents. Form 1 makes a lot of sense for a Mandalorian as well, since it allows her to close the gap while dealing with multiple opponents, switching weapons at the same time. As for Ahsoka, similarly to Rebels and Clone Wars, she generally sticks to Shien, Form 5, but in her fight against Marok and Baylan Skoll, at times it seemed like she was switching to Sarisu, Form 3. As for Baylan Skoll, he is clearly a Djemso user, as his strikes are filled with his physical strength while also having many defensive options. The set design was really great in Ahsoka. Lothal looks exactly as it does in Rebels. Not only the locations, but the ships and droids as well. The Ghost was perfect, the Phantom Mark II as well. Chopper was incredible, as well as the appearance of C-3PO at the end. But the addition of Hu Yang, which is a droid that we have met before in Star Wars The Clone Wars, during a 3-episode arc involving Jedi younglings, blew us away.
The inclusion of the new galaxy to explore is very interesting. Unfortunately, we haven't seen much in this season of Ahsoka. The planet Ezra is trapped on, Peridia, is a complete mystery. The inhabitants of the planet are unclear. Are the bandits with the red armor the original Night Brothers? Are the turtles the original inhabitants? This is the planet of the Night Sisters. There should be a lot more architecture, ruins, and ancient civilizations. While the new galaxy is kind of a letdown, apart from seeing the Night Sisters, the addition of Hu Yang, stating that the Jedi archives have record of intergalactic hyperspace lanes, is really fascinating. And explaining that the Night Sisters are originally from another galaxy is interesting, since it could explain how their connection to the Force is much different. We also see an additional term like Spoken Jedi to describe a Force-sensitive trained outside of the structure of the Jedi Order. This really adds more detail to the post-Order 66 era of Star Wars.
At the very end of the show, we see Baylan Skoll looking in the distance, where he sees a shining light on a mountaintop. He is standing on top of a statue of the Father, one of the 3 Mortis gods that we have met before in Star Wars The Clone Wars. In this scene, we also see the statue of the brother and sister. This reinforces the fact that what is calling Baylan in the Force is something of great importance. The fact that Baylan is standing on the Father statue is also very indicative, since the Father is supposed to represent balance, which portrays Baylan Skoll very well, as we spoke of earlier. The fact that the sister statue is broken is very symbolic. The father and brother are immortalized in stone, while hers is broken, since in Season 3 of The Clone Wars, we saw that once she passes, part of her remains with Ahsoka in the form of the Owl, which we see a bit of before in the episode, as well as in The Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels. Sabine and Ahsoka through this season have finally found their balance and can resume their Master-Padawan relationship. The Owl will most certainly be their guide during this journey to stop whatever Baylan has planned.
We are interested in what will happen with Shin later in the story, since her master gave her her freedom, and that she decided to become the leader of the barbarians. We can conclude that she will go through a similar character development that Sabine and Ahsoka went through when fighting their true purpose. The main reason why Ezra was separated from Sabine was also to make sure that he would make it back to be able to train Jason. Thrawn arriving on Dathomir with the Night Sisters is pretty terrifying. If you didn't know, Mother Townsend was the leader of the Night Sisters during the Clone Wars, and she's incredibly powerful. And Palpatine definitely thought that Dathomir was a threat, since he eradicated their species to not be opposed. Dathomir is a treasure trove for Force artifacts, to be used specifically by Night Sisters. If Thrawn gets access to all these artifacts and an army of zombie sisters, and whatever resources the Shadow Council of the Empire has managed to gather, he will be unstoppable. This is our full review of the Ahsoka series.
Tell us what your thoughts are on the future of the Heir to the Empire saga in the comments below.
May the Force be with you.
Always.